How are we all doing tonight? We are currently running on Facebook Live and Periscope. Hopefully this will work out. We're going to try this again today. Okay, this is going to be an open forum. So we are going to be talking about a bunch of different things on my plans for Michigan. My name is Todd Schleiger, and I am running for governor in 2018. We have issues going on in Michigan, and we need some real change. So, let's see how this works out. We are currently building an audience, and we shall be taking off here pretty quick. Okay, let's hope we keep a good connection tonight for both. Now, like I said, this is going to be an open forum, so if there's any questions you want asked, this is the time to ask them. Again, we are on Facebook Live and Periscope, both running. See how long we can keep this up. Looks like Periscope's running better than Facebook Live. There we go. We're starting to build the audience on both. So, how you doing tonight, Diane, Rich, and Chris, and John, and Sarah? Anybody got any questions out there? Well, we were at the Woodward Dream Cruise. We talked to quite a few people. Got some signatures. I'd like to have gotten some more, but we're just at the beginning of this. Rich, I'm pro-life, if that'll answer your question. You would bring up a question like that, but yes, I am pro-life. Okay, we can talk about anything you want to talk about tonight that deals with, don't mind my water, that deals with Michigan State law, government, seeing how I am running for governor. We can touch on taxes, we can touch on road repairs, we can touch on where some of this money is that Lansing's coming up with. They don't seem to have the money to fix our roads properly, but they still have money to replace the state senate building. Just because they have leaky windows, they're rebuilding a new, aside $158 million just to rebuild the senate building. Just because they have leaky windows and supposedly mold, instead of cleaning it up and saving the taxpayers money. They don't want to do that. And plus $87 million for dome repairs that they should have been keeping up all along. But yet, they can't find money for our roads. How are you doing this evening, Brooklyn? Nice of you to join us. Chris, how's the video feed? Is it coming in sketchy on the Facebook Live? I see you're on Twitter as well. Okay, again, my plan is to cut $20 billion out of the tax structure of Michigan. People ask, where am I going to take that out of? I want to take it out of the property taxes on primary residence only. Now, seems to be a misconception that if we take away property taxes, that we'll be taking away funding from our fire departments and our police departments. Well, that is not true. 95% of all your taxes that you pay, whether it be income tax or property taxes or sales tax, it all goes to Lansing. Lansing redisperses it and they disperse it to the local governments, county, and city. The reason I want to cut $20 billion out of the tax program in Michigan is for the simple reason we are being overtaxed. They like artificially inflating your property tax in order to make more money. And I give you a perfect example of that. There's a home that I am in right now that in the last year the property values supposedly have gone up twice, from originally $158,000, then it went up to $244,000. Now, most homeowners would be happy that the value of their house went up, but then when you turn around and look at the property tax that's attached to it, doesn't make you so happy. Well, 6 months after they raised it, January of 2016, to $244,000, now they're saying the house is worth $360,000. Well, I personally have not done anything to raise the value of the home. So that tells me it's artificially being raised in order to collect property tax. Now, that's without the people's vote. Now, you have villages that they put on ballots to raise your property tax for your schools and such like that. So, if that's the case, why don't they just eliminate the property tax like I would like to do and just have school tax, but do not attach it to your homes? You can go and raise a school tax, place it on the sales tax, place it on your income tax. You can place it on anything that you want. The problem is they want to put it onto our homes, because if they raise the value of your home so much that you can't afford it, then they can steal your home from you, and then they can resell it and make a larger amount of money. That's my theory. That doesn't necessarily mean it's true, but that's the way I think they do it. So that's one of my big main promises, is to eliminate the property tax, but that's only on your primary residence. If you can afford a second home, you can afford the tax on that second home. As far as repairing our roads, I've gone through this before, and I'll go through it every chance I can get. Our roads are supposed to be repaired by the gas tax. Lansing likes to tell people our gas tax is 19 cents per gallon. Okay, they do not want to tell you about the other sales tax and fees on our gasoline. Now, this is just on the gasoline. I'm going to go into details on the diesel, but it's set up the same way. If you take the gas tax and the other state taxes and fees, it equals up to $57 million a week. Now, that is figured on the average family buying 16 gallons a week. Okay, most of us buy more than 16 gallons a week, but it was easier to sit down and figure it out on a weekly basis, just to say we filled our tanks up once, because we have seniors that might not fill their gas tank up for 2 weeks at a time. But the average family of four with children and groceries and doctor's appointments, you're going to fill your gas tank up at least twice. But we figured it for once per week, 16 gallons, which is still just an average, because most of us are driving SUVs. They have 26 and 30 gallon tanks. Some even have dual tanks, but we're only going to figure the 16 gallons. That totals out, like I said, to $57 million a week. Now, if you multiply that by 52, you're going to come up with $2.96 billion a year. But yet they cannot fix our roads. Most of our roads, heavy trucks don't even go on. So we can't blame the trucks. We have secondary roads that haven't been touched in 15 years. Some of them are still holding up pretty dang good, but they should be resurfaced. If we're getting 15 years out of some of these secondary roads, that's pretty dang good. It's worth the cost of resurfacing. We need to redo our infrastructure in Michigan. Now, That's the only thing I'm having an issue with. But the reason I'm saying an issue is I'm trying to figure if I cut $20 billion out of the tax scheme, and I call it a scheme because that's what it is. Lansing's just filling their pockets, trust me. That's why they can afford, you have some senators out there that have 3 CPAs or bookkeepers, whatever you want to call them. Why they have 3, I have no idea. Most of them have 1 or 2. I think they each need 1. That's a waste of money on the taxpayers. There's a lot of things I'd like to go through and change, and it would make the state more cost efficient. Part of it would be going through and figuring out why they need 3 CPAs or bookkeepers. I don't foresee any reason for it, if you want to know the truth. Not only that, you have some that are being paid up to as much as $90,000 a year. Our senators and our state reps only make $71,869 per year, even though they only work 100 days out of the year. I will change that as well. So why are these bookkeepers making more money than our senators? I have no idea. Maybe they have secrets that we don't even know about. But these are cost-cutting things that I'm going to go through. I'm not going to go through cutting out the entitlement programs unless it's fraudulent or something like that. But first cuts that I will be doing will be right in Lansing itself and with our elected officials. I will be cutting out the frivolous spending that they are currently doing. I will fix our roads by, here's what's going on. Like I said, we're paying roughly 48.66 cents per gallon of gasoline. They're spending 13.75 cents per mile on the roads. If they would spend the full amount of the gas tax on our roads, they wouldn't be in half as bad a shape as they are now. So we need to stop the misappropriation of those taxes and put them on the roads like they should be. That'll be the first thing. We need to create an infrastructure program to where we fix our power grid in the state of Michigan. We fix the roads and bridges are going to be completely separate from the infrastructure repairs because we got water lines that need to be replaced that are aged and outdated. We have the power lines. The main reason the power lines are going down lately is because of the trees. They need to be cut back from these power lines. I would love to see them all be put underground so you don't have that issue, but from what I understand, some of them we can't do that with. Why, I don't know. That'll be one thing I look into. Along with the infrastructure, we need to generate jobs. By redoing our infrastructure, we will create a lot of jobs. Now, I don't want to sound like our presidential candidates that are running because they are promising you all kinds of jobs to be created through infrastructure repair and replacement. But it is true. If you tackle the infrastructure like it needs to be tackled, it should generate somewhere between 30 and 50,000 jobs in Michigan alone. I've been thinking over a program for wind and solar. I don't have all the details for it yet. I'm still looking into it. That should create between 3,000 and 5,000 jobs here in Michigan as well. We'd like to target that for up in northern Michigan where the jobs are needed more for them. I mean, they're not needed more, but they have less chances of jobs up there. I don't want to make that sound like I care more about the northern part of Michigan than I do the southern. I think it all needs to be taken care of all around the state. With the road repairs, we've estimated that that's going to create close to 10,000 jobs because we figure between 40 and 75 road building companies will be hiring for that purpose. I mean, some of it will be menial labor. Others will be jobs that are higher pay, but there's a whole bunch that's going into this. There's a bunch of numbers that are being thrown at me, and which we are gathering. I would be putting those out on my website, hopefully within the next couple of months. But so far from just what we've been talking about, we figure somewhere between, in the first year of my administration, and thinking outside the box, we ought to be able to generate right near 80 to 110,000 jobs in the first year. My goal is to hit 500,000 jobs in 4 years. The first year will be the simplest on creating jobs. Now, the second part of creating jobs for Michigan will be lowering and eliminating some of the taxes. Like I've been talking about, we plan on cutting $20 billion out of the tax structure. Roughly $13 billion of that is the personal property tax on your primary residence only. I've said that about 3 times already. The other ones will be readjusting the corporate income tax, taking it from 6% down to 3%. Now, that's not cutting out of that tax structure. Let me clarify this. Right now, the corporate income tax is 6%. That was changed in 2011 by Governor Schleiger. The only problem I have with that is mom and pop businesses are paying this 6%. It's the banks that are paying just a hair over 1/4% when they should be paying the 6%. You got the insurance industry, which is paying 1.75%. Okay, and they should be paying the 6%. That's unfair. This is our small businesses carrying some of these big businesses' portions of the tax, and that's not fair to our mom and pop businesses. What I'd want to do is lower the corporate income tax down to 3% flat across the board. All the banks will come up to 3%. All the insurance companies will come up to 3%. General Motors will go down to the 3%. They're not paying 6%, but they are paying more than 3%. By us cutting the corporate income taxes alone should bring in another 25,000 jobs, because it'll open up more money from these businesses in order to hire people. Now, I've had a lot of people talk to me about raising our minimum wage here in the state of Michigan. Now, I don't know if any of you realize this. Governor Schleiger did put into law that we are going to increase gradually up to $10 an hour. I am currently watching how this is affecting our local and small businesses here in Oakland County. A lot of the business owners said they can handle $10 an hour. Some even said they can handle up to $12 an hour. Not one of them agreed that they could handle too many at $15 an hour. But $12 an hour isn't quite a living wage, not for a single working family. So we have to look at other ways in order to bring up the minimum wage in the state of Michigan. My ideas are to cut out some of these taxes that I feel are frivolous. Now, we can't really afford to go much more than that $20 billion. According to the papers that were just released, the amount of money the state brings in on all taxes combined is $131.6 billion. It went up from $125.9 billion. So, I mean, right there, you have just under $6 billion increases in taxes that people don't even realize were increased. We need to go through and find out which taxes. Some of the regulations are making it harder for our businesses to even open their doors. So we need to go through and cut some of these regulations. I will not, and I promise you this, I will not cut regulations that are protecting our environment or the people themselves. But there are some regulations that are put in place so that little mom and pop businesses cannot compete with major businesses like our box stores. And when I say our big box stores, I'm talking about Walmart, Myers, we have Lowe's, Home Depot. Those are big box stores. There's another thing going on with them called dark stores. They're paying property taxes like they're not even in business. That will stop under my administration. That's part of the regulations that I want to equalize for businesses here in Michigan. It needs to be an equal playing field and fair so that our mom and pops can thrive. After all, our whole nation has been carried on the back of the middle class. These small businesses hire more than these major companies combined as well. If you look at it, I know that sounds kind of unbelievable, but when you think about it, General Motors hires, they have probably somewhere between 12 and 20,000 employees. Well, you add up all those mom and pop businesses around this great state of ours, and I'll guarantee you they'll double the number of our big corporations. Not all combined, but I'm going just as a general statement. We need to equalize the playing field. My administration is based on accountability, equality, and integrity. And accountability, I have a plan to bring back our common law grand jury or people's grand jury. 2005, Antonin Scalia, which to me is one of the best Supreme Court justices we've had. He passed away a couple months ago. But in 2005, he wrote, "The People's Grand Jury is a fourth branch of government. It belongs to the people. Not one of the three other branches have the authority to oversee or tell this branch what to do." The People's Grand Jury is one way of keeping our judges in line and our elected officials in line. They have that authority. It's coming directly from the people. So we need to bring this back to Michigan to help with the accountability. After all, I said I will not be held accountable by anybody but the people in Michigan. We are getting ready to publish my contract with the people of Michigan. It's a legal binding contract that I will be upheld to by you, the people. We are also, once we get everything done on that, we will be publishing policy papers. They just take a while to write. I want to make sure everything's accurate on them, all the numbers match up, and so forth. But my phone number is public. I have no problems with answering my phone and talking to the people if they want to call me. Just make sure it's during not too late at night. I am a working person, so we do have a website up and running. It is Schleiger for Governor. That's SCHLEIGER Governor2018.com. I want you to understand that we are doing this for change in Michigan. I'm not doing this for any personal reasons other than we need somebody in there with common sense. It seems like our elected officials have lost their common sense or are afraid to speak up. I will not be afraid to listen to the people or voice my own opinion. People who know me, sometimes they say that might get me in trouble because I do not back down and I will voice my opinion. I'll say this again, no matter who gets elected, whether it be as, I won't even go there, if it's Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, doesn't matter. Whichever one gets elected, we're going to need a strong governor in Michigan. And I'm not afraid to even tell Washington to go take a hike. I will not allow them to trample on our civil rights, our constitutional rights, or anything that interferes with our way of life here. If they want to bring in some unconstitutional laws, the governor has the right to nullify that. But I will say this, if the governor's going to stand up against Washington, the people of Michigan need to stand behind their governor. Right now, we have the nerd in there who's done nothing but let the state of Michigan down. Don't get me wrong, he has done a few good things, and I understand that he has. But in his negligence with Flint, between him, Brian Calley and Bill Schuette, the top three offices in the state of Michigan, in the government, they have let this state down. Now you're going to have Brian Calley out there running for governor in 2018. You're going to have Bill Schuette. The people of Flint have already known that they are playing this white knight, riding in on their white little Shetland ponies, whatever you want to call them. They're trying to play that they're the saviors of Flint. Well, I have one message for them and all the other state elected officials that have, they could have done something to save Flint a lot earlier than they did. They waited a year after knowing something was not right before they even got involved. That is wrong. To me, that is negligence, and the governor should know what's going on in his state. So that is all I'm going to say about Flint, other than that they need their water lines replaced. They don't need them recoded. They need them replaced. And in my opinion, they're working too slow to get that done. That should have been tackled from the get-go. They should have had a citywide teams out there. They could have hired people, some of the people that are out on the streets, they could have hired them and put them to work and get these lead lines out of the ground. Now that's part of the infrastructure that I was talking about. Flint's not the only one. You have Ann Arbor, you have Grand Rapids, you have Saginaw, you have even the big Detroit metro area. They all have lead lines that need to come out of the ground so this does not happen again. That would be there's plenty of people in Michigan that want to work. That's one way of putting them to work. And it's going to be probably 10 years of work or more, plus the keeping, updating, and keeping the system going. You got people in Flint paying the highest water bills. You got people in Detroit paying the highest property taxes in the nation. That's not right. But we will get that straightened out once I'm elected governor. This I promise you. I'm going through. I don't care what we have to do. We will get the job done. Anybody else have any other questions instead of listening to me ramble on? If you noticed, it's bottled water tonight instead of the Gatorade. No questions out there? You guys want to hear me ramble some more? All right. Schools. They've turned into one of my pet peeves. And like I've said, we need to go through our school system. And now some people have disagreed with me on this. I think that the schools, we need to cut the classroom size down for one major thing. I guess we got some classes in the metro area, and I think even Flint has said something about this. They have, in the metro area, I know for a fact, I've seen 2 classrooms that actually have 52 students in them. That's ridiculous. Somehow, some way, I would like to change that to where that no classrooms can have more than 28 students. That would cut the classroom size down. That would give the teacher more time with the students instead of, I don't know how they do it with those 52 kids, to tell you the truth. We need to get the pay up for our teachers. We need to get rid of the Common Core, because from talking to some of the teachers and just common sense, the Common Core is a failure. Okay, I think we need to bring in more of the STEM program, but at the same time, the teachers that I have talked to, excuse me, my nose itches, it ties their hands. They have to follow this curriculum instead of using their own creativity to teach our students. If you allow the teachers to use their creativity, they can creatively, some students learn differently. They can use this creativity to get through to some of these students. Some students, classes would be more fun, I guess, and the students would learn better. Right now, Michigan's ranked number 39 out of the nation for worst schools, and we are dropping. They are saying that we are going to be 41 over the next 5 years. I'd like to change that around. I'd like to make Michigan at least up in the top 10 or even the top 5 of the best schools in the nation. Now, we have schools, right now the average amount of money going to our schools, supposedly what Lansing is saying, and from numbers I've gathered from, is right around $8,000 per student. We have some schools that get $10,000 per student, and then we have some schools that only get $7,300 per student. Why is that such a difference in the same state? You know, this is what I'm getting at. We need to regulate the funds going to our schools. I realize the schools are being paid by the number of students in those schools. I am all for public schools, but I want them to be funded properly and fairly. We need to get our teachers' opinions in there. We need to get some of these. We got teachers that haven't had a pay raise. Matter of fact, they have taken a pay cut. Our kids are being put into their hands to teach them. And they're not even being paid like they're worth it. We need to change that. We got some teachers, now this is one thing some of you may not agree. This tenure thing. You know, once a teacher hits tenure, some of them think that they can't be fired. If they're not going to do their job, they need to go. We need to have our teachers there to teach our kids. Parents need to get involved to help the teachers. We need to get control of our children. We need to get our kids taught the subjects they need to be taught and make them a productive person of society. You know, I don't know how else to say it. If we want our kids to do well, we need to put the money towards our schools. We need to upgrade our schools. We need to get our school buildings in shape, not letting them be run down. Some of the schools, it would be cheaper to refurbish these buildings than it would be to rebuild a school. We need to look at all these from all different ends. Some it would be cheaper to tear down. And you know the sad part of it is some of those schools that need to be tore down, we have our children in there. And yet we have empty school buildings that aren't too far from these really worn out schools, but they're not utilizing them. That has to change. These are part of the changes that need to happen in Michigan. And now a lot of people have said that I'm wanting to change too many things at once. Somebody has to do it. We need to think outside the box and not be afraid to take that jump. You know, accountability stretches all across our state. We need to hold our teachers accountable. We need to hold our elected officials accountable. And we definitely need to hold our judicial system accountable here in Michigan. We have judges that have stepped way past their boundaries. They have taken a law, and let me clarify, these laws are supposed to be letter specific, not set down and be able to be broadened so that they encompass whatever these judges and lawyers want. That is not right. That is against our rights. It is against the way the laws were meant to be. If the law says you're not supposed to run through a red light, that's what the law means. Doesn't mean that they can broaden it and say, for instance, well, that might have been the wrong analogy to use, but let's use the stop sign, okay? Stop sign says you're supposed to stop. That doesn't mean to do, I think most people know it as a California rolling stop, okay? The whole idea is if the law says you're not supposed to do it, then you don't do it. But these judges are taken, family courts are really bad with this. When a father doesn't pay his child support, the first thing they want to do is throw him in jail. Okay, I don't agree with deadbeat fathers. But if you put him in jail and he loses his job, the judge will turn around and look at you and say, well, you should have been paying. Other people would say, well, that's true. But now you just took a second family, his income away from that second family. Not to mention he may be losing his house depending on how long the judges hold him in there. So how does that benefit the system? It doesn't. These are part of the changes. These are part of the things that I've been trying to figure out ways and talking to people and getting ideas on how to change. You know, some of this can be very simply done. It's called a little bit of compassion, but if a father's meant to pay child support, he's working, don't give him the opportunity to say he'll pay. You just fill out an income withholding and it goes right to his work. It comes out of his check, he doesn't see it. I don't like the school voucher program, Rich. What I do believe in is putting the time and effort into our public schools. I'm not even a fan of the charter schools. I believe in building our public schools to be the best in the nation. There's more, being honest with you, I am looking into the voucher program, but I don't agree with it. From what I've known about it and read on it, I don't agree with the system. It's more geared towards our charter schools, and I believe our tax dollars ought to go into our public schools, not into the private schools, not into the charter schools. What a lot of people will tell you is that the charter schools are just like our public schools, but there's a big difference. Charter schools are they're a for-profit school. They're not like the public schools that are non-profit. Does that answer your question? So these are, I know I'm bouncing all over, but I told you this is open forum. We are talking about whatever you want to bring up. When nobody wants to ask a question, I'll ramble on to the next one. So we've talked about roads tonight. We've talked about schools. We've talked about our infrastructure. We've talked about the accountability with the People's Grand Jury. There's a whole lot of things that need to be tackled. And I can go through, like the roads are my pet peeve. The schools are becoming more and more. Infrastructure, I'm honestly still working on. And job creation, I've thought, like I said, within the first year, we are set up to bring in between 80 and 120,000 jobs. That will be the simplest year. The second year should be right near there or more, depending on how well received the tax cuts are by the corporations and businesses in Michigan. For some of the other things that I'd like to do is I want to make sure that our schools purchase all school supplies from companies here in Michigan, not outside. I understand some people would say, well, what if they get a cheaper price outside the state? It's not a matter of being the cheaper price. It's called supporting your state, supporting your families. If the schools buy from local businesses, they are supporting those communities. If we don't have a company, and I don't know if we do, but if we don't have a company here in Michigan that makes number 2 pencils, then we need to bring a company here to Michigan knowing that they're going to have a contract for however many years that we have schools. That means that company's going to be making pencils for our schools for the next 50 years. If we need, we have paper companies here in Michigan. Georgia Pacific is in Kalamazoo, James River, or somewhere right in that area. There's a paper supplier. I mean, not everything is going to be available for the schools to buy right from Michigan right away. I realize that. But we can target those type of businesses to bring them to Michigan. We can target them to put them in certain areas in Michigan. This is the way I want to do this. I want Michigan to show the nation that we can be self-sufficient if we have to. Because there's going to be things that I'm going to peeve off or really make Washington mad about. And the first thing out of their mouths are they're going to stop funding for the state of Michigan. Well, I'm not worried about that for a simple fact. By the time the tax cuts get done here in Michigan and everybody's moving on like they should be, being happy, making more money, the Fed might come in and say, we're going to take away your funding for your schools. That's fine. Then as governor, I'll step up and say, well, if you're going to take federal funding away from us for that, well, then we're going to cut your federal tax dollars and we're going to put these into our schools. Okay, what do we got here? Rich, when I say I'm going to hold our schools and teachers accountable, I mean that. That's not just something I'm saying. We have every politician out here says that they want to hold somebody accountable, but they've lied to us over and over. I mean, competition is a good thing in our schools. But here's the thing. I don't feel that our state dollars need to be going to public schools, or excuse me, private schools. All our tax dollars go to our public schools and charter schools. The charter schools are for profit. I want our public schools to be the best schools in the state and in the nation. But the whole thing is, I want all our school fund to go to our public schools. I have to see more on this because you put it on there. You think that we should be putting tax dollars into to private schools and charter schools so that they compete? How about having our public schools be the best in the nation ahead of even altogether? You know, I understand that the public or private schools and the charter schools are creating jobs. But here's the thing, those teachers that are working at those charter schools and the private schools, your private schools are funded by tuition, okay, which in a sense our public schools are as well. But the reason you have those private schools, the majority of them, and the charter schools is because the public schools aren't up to par. If our public schools are where they should be, on top of everything, you wouldn't even have to have those charter schools. And most likely the private schools wouldn't be there either, other than you have our religious private schools. I have nothing against them. There's quite a few of them that are better than, most of them are better than our public schools right now. I want to change that around. I want our public schools to be the best. When you send your child to school, you know he or she's going to be learning. You know they're going to be safe. I just don't agree with the voucher program. I'm sorry. But like I said, I can't make everybody happy. I can just tell you the truth, let you know when you ask where the tax dollars are going as governor, you will get an answer. If you want to know how much tax dollars came in this quarter for the school funding program, you call the governor's office, you will get an answer. It might take them a day or two, but they will get back to you. That'll be a priority. This transparency, they've ruined the word transparency. I want to use full disclosure. I'm not going to hide nothing. I'm not going to lie to people. Sometimes you might not like what I have to say, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Excuse me. Well, I'd like to make everybody happy, Chris, but that's not a reality there. You can't make everybody happy, but I can do the best to make the majority of the people happy in Michigan. And I think when they've heard me speak, they've heard about the tax cuts, and after I've gone into the details of them, they understand them and they think they're fair. I will not raise taxes on the people of Michigan. That is not a fair tax. if it's a tax that we're going to bring in, the people are going to vote on that tax. So it won't be done behind our backs like with Prop 1. When we turned down Prop 1 back in May, the state government went right back behind us and shoved a 7.5 cent gas tax increase right up where the sun doesn't shine. So that won't happen under my administration as well. All right, if there's no more questions, we're going to cut this one off. We've been on here. I don't even have a clock this time, so if there's no other questions, we're going to end this. And I thank all of you for coming and listening, I should say. I hope I've answered as many of the questions as we've had on here, and I'm sorry, Rich, if I didn't answer your question the way you wanted to hear it, but at least I'm telling you my honest opinion. Enjoy your evenings, and blessings to you all. Have a good evening.